The Ford Model T, the Ford company's first project in the United States. It had broken the barrier of transportation by letting people travel around the United States quicker and easier. It had excellent durability with a strong frame, which was made out of aluminum alloy.
In October 1908, after 2 years of development, Henry Ford introduced the latest in his alphabet line, the Model T.
Bill collectors gather round and rather, all the parties next door. Men the grocer and the butcher spent, men who call for the rent. But within a happy Stampy and his bride of only a year seem to be so cheerful. Here's an earful of the chatter you hear. Every morning, every evening, ain't we got fun? Not much money, oh but honey, ain't we got fun?
It had a 4-cylinder, 20-horsepower engine, a vastly improved transmission, and an ingenious magnetic generator that provided power for an ignition and lights. With an open top and an optional cover, it came in just one color, green at first, later black. Weighing only 1,200 pounds, the Model T could go 40 miles per hour on a smooth, straight road. It was also remarkably durable.
They didn't break down a lot compared to other vehicles, and when they did, they were very simple to repair.
It was produced and released to the public in 1908. It was the first car that was invented in the United States of America. Henry Ford, the inventor, had many projects for the car, but later finished when he got to the Model T. During the time, the Model T was selling for around $850 for every car sold, and the price later went down when more cars were sold. When the price went down, the car was something almost everybody could afford. The Model T was produced and sold from 1908 to 1927. By 1913, the Model Ts had a new 60-acre factory.
As Henry Ford liked to tell it, his was a rags to riches tale. He was a child genius who fled an oppressive father to become one of the most successful entrepreneurs the world had ever seen.
Since young manhood, if not childhood, Henry Ford had felt a certain sense of destiny, that he was slated to do important things. He liked to picture himself to others as a kind of heroic individual who climbed to success against the odds.
This wasn't somebody just gening out a product. This was a quality to the economical car that the world had never even imagined could be possible.
The response was immediate and overwhelming. Orders poured in from doctors, traveling salesmen, artisans, and farmers, people who had never dreamed of becoming motorists.
The Model T changed everything. It gave people a new sense of power and authority and control over their lives. You can go wherever you wanted, and you can go by yourself.
Henry Ford was born on July 30th, 1863. He was born in Greenfield Township, Michigan. He grew up in a time very different from ours. Out of 6 siblings, Ford was the oldest. He grew up knowing how hard farmers work. Henry was a curious boy. He took wind-up toys apart to see how they were made. Then he started to make some of his own machines. When Henry was 12, he saw a machine that he had never seen before. It was a new kind of cart instead of a steam engine that made it move. He wanted to know all about the new cart. When he was 16, he found an engineering job in Detroit. A dream of building a gasoline engine became a reality by the end of 1893. 15 years after he built his first steam engine, Henry became a very successful man. He died on April 7th, 1947. Henry Ford started making Model Ts in 1908, and by 1920, millions of Model Ts were being sold. The Ford Model T engines were used in the 1800s and were powered by steam. It was first produced in the color green. Later on, was produced in black. The Model T engine was known for its simplicity, reliability, and its economy. The engine remained in production for many years, and millions of units were being produced. The Model T was built as a gasoline engine. The internal engine design was an inline-4 with all 4 cylinders. The engineering speed of the Ford Model T was carefully timed so that the assembly line did not run too fast or too slow. The line moved 6 feet per minute. Where the workers bolted the front axle to the chassis, the line moved faster, 15 feet per minute.
Get in your car, and you have access now to towns, to cities, to places that were beyond your reach just a few years earlier.
On October 1st, 1908, the Model T was released to the public. On that day, Henry Ford changed the world with his invention. But let's take a look at what he had done to make the Model T. On Christmas Eve, 1893, he started his first steps. He had taken a break from Christmas cooking. He went outside to test his engine, and when he tested it, the engine worked for about 30 seconds. He knew he was on the right track. In 1907, he decided to get multiple engineers to help him develop the Model T. After he had finished designing the engine with the engineers, he decided to start developing the quadcycle. It was a self-propelled vehicle that had 2 failed business ventures. After the ventures, Henry made the Ford Company. The Ford Company was a company that made cars that were affordable for citizens to drive. After the release of the Ford Model T, the Ford Company was a huge success. The company was making millions off of the Ford Model T. The Ford Company expanded to different places. Later on, different car companies started to release new cars, and the Ford Company was outmatched, so they released a new car, which was called the Ford Model A. When they released the car in December, the car was the second huge success behind the Model T. After 2 cars, the Ford Company was growing in popularity. The Ford Company was known from around the world. The company then continued making affordable cars. Later on, in the 1950s, the Ford Company was going on a downfall, so the company had to improvise, and they made a car called Little Falcon, which helped the company stay on top. The car that keeps the company running is the Mustang. After the release, more than 22,000 pre-ordered it on the first day. The Ford Model T was the car that changed America. The Ford Model T was a success. People even changed the body kits into police cars, fire trucks, and taxis. It got popular in America, and by 1918, half of the cars were Ford Model Ts. Some people often gave their Ford model a nickname. Some popular nicknames are Tin Lizzie and Flivver. The Ford Model T was the first car to use the left-hand side for the steering wheel. The Ford Model T was the best-selling car until 1972. During the 19 years of production, the Ford Company sold over 15 million Model Ts. Experts from 32 different countries chose the Ford Model T as the most influential car of the 20th century. In 1927, Henry Ford announced that they would no longer manufacture any more Model Ts.